employer is looking at me, I have to be on my best behavior and make sure that I let you out here before lunchtime. Okay. So thank you so much for coming, like I said, and wonderful testimonies that we've had of God's goodness and God's mercies to all of us. Yes, my name is Tunde Oyekola. And yes, we've designed and delivered 4 airports, and currently we're building the 5th one, so it is true. But I never ever started out wanting to be that, or hoping to be that, or believing I could be that. And as I look at your faces, I see a lot of passion. I see a lot of drive, but I also see a lot of questions, and it's very interesting. And you're wondering what your tomorrow is going to be like. I see people who are committed to whatever it is they are doing. And no matter what your calling is, one thing that all of us do is marketing. All of us. Because whatever service you are rendering and offering, you have to sell it. Am I correct? And you have to sell it well enough, convince somebody to buy it. So you're a marketer. So every day what you're trying to do is to persuade somebody to do something, whether you like it or not. You may not put it in those words, but that's exactly what it is you're doing. Whether you are the head of HR in your outfit, or like my dear friend, you make clothes, or you're a teacher, you're always trying to persuade people. And it's interesting to note that the most compelling attribute of anybody to persuade is your character. Character speaks louder than logic. Did you hear me? Yes. Character speaks louder than logic. In other words, if your character is compelling enough, people will follow you. In any business or in any organization there is, the ability of that business to persuade is tied directly to the character of the CEO. Which is why when the CEO, if the company means business, if the CEO's character is faulty, he gets fired. Or she gets fired and somebody else comes in. Am I correct? Yeah. So whatever it is you are doing, for you to succeed, you need to be able to persuade. And for you to make a compelling case, your character is going to be on the line. Question is, how do you do that? And I'm going to talk about three C's. One is care. Care. You can write that down. I want you to go back with something. This is Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International. So we teach business. We teach principles of business. One is called care. The second one is called craft. And the third one is called cause. So care, craft, and cause. How did I come up with these 3 words? It's a very interesting book I read many years ago on an aircraft. By virtue of what I do, I have to travel a lot. And you need to figure out what to do on the planes, because you are sitting down in an aircraft for 5 hours and then another 10 hours and sometimes 15 hours. And so you need to do stuff. So I tend to read and sleep. I don't watch too many movies on the plane. But it was a summary of a book written by a sage called Aristotle. Everybody knows Aristotle, don't you? You know Aristotle. And Aristotle in his book Rhetoric was talking about these 3 things. And I found it very, very interesting because it summed up a lot of what we need to know as young people, as middle-aged people, growing up and running our businesses, if the businesses must succeed. Now, many years ago, when I was in college, I really didn't know what the future held. And at the time, Nigeria, if you think Nigeria is bleak now, and there doesn't seem to be that much hope going forward, and there are crises and everything. When I was finishing school, I think Nigeria was even more bleak. And it's difficult for you to wrap your mind around. There were no jobs. But there were a number of things that were in my heart as a rock solid foundation. One of the things that I had learned very early was that whatever you do it to the best of your ability. Whatever you do, don't look at the person you are doing it for. Because ultimately you are doing it for who? Yourself. So I determined to excel at whatever it was I was doing. And the level of excellence was very simple for me. It was very simple to define. Have I put in 100% of my effort? As long as I can convince myself that I put in 100% of my effort, that is good enough. But anytime I fell short and put in 90%, it wasn't good enough. And it didn't matter what the end result was. I felt like a failure. And for some people, it's a very hard sell. Because a lot of my classmates and so on just couldn't understand why. But that singular thing was a drive for me. And it drove me to the point, maybe you can turn this a bit because when I come I get confused. And it drove me to the point where excellence became like my, when you go to church, they say, surely goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life, correct? So goodness and mercy are twins. So excellence became like my twin. So if I was goodness, excellence was mercy. And it kept following me all the way through. And it was something that happened very early in my life because I had always wanted to be the best at everything I was doing. I was born in a very interesting family, and everybody here has a story, and everybody comes from a very, very great background, whether you say it or not. Because it's at the end of the day, when you look at your story and you put it all backwards, that you see how interconnected every single thing is about your story. A bit like Nasiru, my father was a Muslim. My mother was a nominal Christian. I was the only son for many years, so my path was practically carved out for me. But somewhere around age 10, I had a very interesting encounter where my father comes home and says, okay, so get ready and I'm taking you to Islamic school. And I was beginning to learn Arabic at the time and I liked it. So I said, okay, so go and take a shower. So I went into the bathroom to take my shower. And while I was taking the shower, I was ruminating in my mind. I'm very young, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm just having a thought. And the first question is, where are you going? I said, well, I'm having my bath. Yes. Where are you going? I'm going to Islamic school. Yes. To do what? To learn Arabic. And do you know what's going to happen after that? I said no. And it's just me. It's not a voice or any Gangan thing. It's just a little boy. But my Gangan was ahead. Apologies to myself. So if you do that, you're going to become a Muslim. Is that what you want to do? And I'm only 10, so I really don't even know the answer to that question. But, so don't go. And I said, okay. Unfortunately, those times are not like these times where I can tell my daughter something and my daughter will look me in the face and say, no, you are wrong. And it can't be right. And then when you say, well, but and they will tell me, well, don't even bother Googling it because you are going to go to Wikipedia and Wikipedia is not a source. And so we go through all those arguments and they bring forth their strong reasons, I bring forth my strong reason, and if they win, I have to back down. In my days, my father's words were law. Non-contestable. It doesn't matter whether what he said was right or wrong, it was law. And you just abided by it. So now, don't go. How do I go and tell him I am not going? It was an impossible task. So I saunter into his room, and I'm crying, and he says, what is it? So I'm just there crying because I'm speechless. He says, you don't want to go, do you? And I shake, but I can't say it. So I shake my head. And he says, why? Is it because the place is dirty? I've never been to one, so I don't know. So I'm just there. He says, okay, all right, no problem. You will not go. I'll find another way. Then shortly after that, he himself, went somewhere, there was a painting, and and he asked me what the painting was about. And I'll tell you how it's all interconnected, don't worry. I'm not a bad storyteller. I'll try and hold your attention for a while. And he said, what do you see? And I see people, the painting, I can see people dressed very nicely, and these people are not too nicely dressed. These people are having fun, these people look very boring. But beyond, I can see some fire and some light. He says, do you know what that is? And I said, no. And he says, well, this is the story of the broad way and the narrow way. And I'm wondering, what's the broad way and what's the narrow way? This is my father and I having this exchange. And he says, these people you see here on this side who are gaily dressed and so on, they are on the proverbial broad way. But you can see the loss of vices and so on. And if you continue like that, beyond that is fire. That's hell, And I said, oh, really? What about these guys who look so drab and boring? And he says, well, this is the narrow way. And if you follow this narrow way, beyond there you see light. That's where God is. And as a kid, this picture never left my mind. Okay? This is something between my dad, my Muslim dad, and I. Not too long after that, in school, there was a teacher who would come in there and he'd gather us kids and be talking to us. And one day he was talking to us and he told us the story of the broad way and the narrow way. And he says, let me make an appeal to you. Let me invite you onto the narrow way. Because when you get onto the narrow way, your road becomes clear, clean, crisp, narrow, and things are easier to do and to achieve. Who wants to be on the narrow way? Of course, the foundation had already been laid by my father who had told me this story. Am I correct? Yes. So I quickly jumped and I said, yeah, I do. And he prayed for us and he told us that we're now born again, whatever that meant. And we're now Christians, whatever that meant. But listen. So he says you should read your Bible. And there's something about the Bible. The more you read it, the bigger it tends to get. Sometimes the more confusing it is. Am I correct? And the Bible is a huge book. And there are times you read it and you go and you've forgotten. In fact, you wouldn't have gone too far before you forget what it was you had read. But okay, so we started trying to do that, trying to read. And he says that if you read it, it will change you. Okay, whatever that meant. Because I was too young. But today when I look back, I can see the things lining up. And I'll tell you the story up to Airports Council International and everything and how it's all wrapped up in one. And get you to understand that. Look. So you go through exams. I was topping my class. Got to secondary school. And I was topping my class. But my life was narrow way life. Because I'd started very early. Are you following me? So, my friends were narrow way friends. That's just the way it was. But as I was reading the Bible, I was still forgetting. And I was reading and forgetting, but I kept reading and I wasn't giving up. But I was also very friendly with people and so on. But then it was time to do WAEC. And in my days, when you did it, they took your best 6 subjects. You tallied it, A1, blah, blah, blah. By the time I was done, my tally for the best 6 was 06. In other words, I had A1 in 6 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, needless to say, I was top of my school. And I had to do JAM. And my JAM score was 337. For those of you who have done JAM before, when you see 337, it's either the machine didn't work, or you were not favored. Doesn't work like that. But that is excellence following you. Are you following me? I thought it is interconnected. It's excellence following you. So I go to university. And I skipped something because time is very short, but my jam form was not filled by me, it was filled by my old man. I told you those days they were just terrorists. Terrorists. So he picked my course, architecture. Now, I had never ever in my life wanted to be an architect. Not once. Never. Growing up. You know, as a kid, you want to be a pilot, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be whatever. Architect was never on the list. So when I saw the form, my dad filled it, he signed it, and they brought it to me in school to sign. I was livid. But I couldn't go and question the man. That's how I ended up in architecture school. Well, of course, with 337, you get a straight pass into the school. But God works in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. Long and short of it, by the time I was graduating first degree in architecture school, I taught my class, first class honors, somebody who never wanted to study architecture. Now, how are these things connected? I told you about care, crafts, and course, correct? I'll come to that. But I also found out that everywhere I went to, people were drawn to me. Drawn to me because I was academically, supply the word, but also because I was very friendly, and when they had problems they came to me, and somehow I was telling them things that seemed to be working, and I didn't know where the depth of the knowledge was coming from, or where the fountain of the knowledge was coming from. But many years down the line, I found out through a story that I read how it all linked up. And I'll come to the care craft and course that will help you with your business going forward. So a little boy went to live with his father with his uncle, with his grandpa, spent some time with his grandpa on a lake. And his grandpa was always reading his Bible. And the little boy, wanting to be like his grandpa too, would also try and be reading his Bible like his grandpa. But like me, anytime he finished reading it, he forgot it. And he told his grandpa, this thing is pointless, it's useless. I read it, I forget it. Why do you keep reading it? And the grandpa said, there was a basket there that they used to carry firewood and coal and things. It says, go and fetch me a basket of water. It's only a 10-year-old you can tell to go and fetch a basket of water. Because if I told you to go and fetch a basket of water, you reason out with me, correct? About what a silly proposition that. So the guy went to the place, fetched the water. Of course, by the time he came back, he only came back with a basket without water. So his grandfather says, try it again. So he went and tried to come faster. No matter how many times he went, because he came back with an empty basket. So he came and threw the basket down and said, it's pointless, it's no use. His grandfather said, why? He says, of course I can't fetch water in a basket. And the grandfather says, look at the basket again. And he looked at the basket and he suddenly realized that the basket was clean. That the colors of the basket that were just black with soot were suddenly, he could see the colors and he could see the paintings of flowers and so on in the basket. And the grandfather told him that the essence of the lesson was not to fetch the water. The essence was not in the water, the essence was in the basket. That if you keep reading, it is changing and transforming you without you knowing. As you keep reading it, you are getting wisdom beyond your age without you knowing. As you keep reading it, your vision is changing without you knowing. As you keep reading it, your character is being changed without you knowing. And then I began to understand why friends were coming to me for wisdom. I began to understand why, when there were problems, I just somehow knew what to do without knowing what the source was. That it wasn't so much about the water, it was about what? The basket. Now you are that basket. The question is, are you going to sit down in your suit and cry how dirty the basket is? And what a wasted effort it is trying to fetch the water? Or are you going to focus on what is possible with that basket? Because that basket is the instrument of persuasion. You know, people say God doesn't talk to them, and I'm laughing because God is talking to you all the time. The problem is that you are tuned to a completely different frequency. So you can't get up and tell me ray power is not working when you've tuned to 90.10 or 8, if ray power is indeed 90.8. If you are not on God's frequency, of course you will not hear him talk, and that's not because he's not talking to you. It's simply because you are in a different zone. So you sit down and your business is all over the place. You look at your business proposal and it seems to make absolute sense. You look at the need out there and you're thinking, but it should be working. And you said, well, somehow God is not on my side. That's not true. The point is, ray power will not change its frequency to yours just because you are tuned there. Who is supposed to do the changing? Me. And that's just the way God works. And those are his principles. So I become an architect. And like I said, everything I set my heart on today, I want to be the best at it. So it's not too strange that I came top of my class. Am I correct? Yes, even if you don't agree with me, I know it's true. But then I changed schools to go to another place because I like a challenge. So in going to the other school, I wanted to find out whether the first one was a fluke or not. So in my master's class, again, I came top of my class, so it couldn't have been a fluke. And I began to practice architecture outside. And I told myself, anything I'm going to do, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. You see, you need to hone your skills. Yes, you must hone your skills. You must know. That's why when somebody says favor, I say, Because, we have misunderstood this whole thing, and you are sitting down for God to come down from heaven and do your job for you. It's not going to happen. Never. It will never, ever happen. Which is why people sit down and say, this person is calling himself a Christian, but I can't give him my job to do, because if you give him your clothes to sew, you end up with a table, because he's more of a carpenter than a tailor. That person does not know his or her craft. That's where craft comes from. Are you following me? Craft does not drop from heaven. But the ability to hone your craft and the wisdom and the skills you need, you will get when you read the scripture, and it will give you guidance as to what to do and what not to do, how to do it. The Bible says, seest thou a man diligent in his way? Have you seen one? I'll tell you about that person. He will stand before kings, not before obscure men. Mm-hmm. There was a time one of the airports we were delivering, towards the end, dignitaries had to fly in to come and see the facility. And anytime they came in, the client, who was the governor of the state, would tell me, today, you need to show them your airport. That has become my airport, by the way. And he would step back, and I'll take the dignitaries round. And they came governor upon governor upon governor, all the way to the vice president. And then the president eventually came. And every time I was going with them, my friends would say, you're standing before kings and not obscure. And I was seeing that scripture being fulfilled. Craft. Be good at what you do. Yes, even when God wanted to build an ark, he sought for somebody who was good at his job. He says, set for me Bezalel and Oholiab, because they are good at their jobs. Then I will put my spirit in them. Why didn't God say, just bring somebody who doesn't know his job, and I'll put the spirit in him, and you suddenly become a very skilled craftsman? Even God doesn't work like that. Okay. So I don't know why you want yours to be different. Craft. Hone it. Hone it. Hone it. Care. People want to know that you're interested in them. Whatever endeavor you're in, it's got to be about people. Sure. It's got to be about people. The biggest mistake we make is that we make our businesses about money. And when you make your business about money, you won't go far. You can't go far. But when you make your business about people, eventually the money will flow, because the money is in the pockets of the people. Many years ago in this town, many years, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, there was an eatery. Abuja was really, very tiny. Everything happened in Garki and Old Wuse. All the things you see in Wuse too and Maitama and all they didn't exist. The big men didn't live in Maitama, they lived in Asokoro. So there was this eatery called McDowell's that was in Zone 4. You know, the owner of McDowell's made everybody's business his business. When you went there to eat and you were served, he found a way of coming to your table by himself. Hope the food is good. How is everybody? And he would know if you were frequent there. He knew your wife, he knew the children and everything. And every time he came to greet you, he made you feel so special that you thought you were the most important guest in the eatery. So you always wanted to go back there. And everybody was going to go there because of that. That's care. That's another word for it is empathy. If you infuse empathy into your business, you'll be amazed at where it will get to. Because you see, human beings are very interesting. We sense, what people say is one thing. What they mean is another thing. And we can sense it when people are interested in us. And when all they want is our money, we can sense it. That's why you go to some hospitals and you want a particular doctor. Empathy. Yes. Now, why is it that you want that doctor to show you empathy and yet in your own sphere of endeavor, you are not giving that empathy? When people are coming to where you are, they are praying that you shouldn't be around. There is a problem. Are you following me? Care. 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 Be interested in people. Be interested in their families. Be interested in what they're doing. Don't just say, how are you, and move on. God is interested in you. He's so interested in you that he's numbered the hair on your head. He can tell you the number outright. That's the level of detail that God has brought to you. And that's what does the difference in businesses. Empathy. People love it when they know you care about them. If you can infuse that into your business is about to change. So maybe you're struggling now because that's lacking. And customers can be horrible. Am I speaking to someone? Yes. Customers can be horrible. And there's a cliche we've known, customer is king. There's some truth in that, but that's not all the truth. The biggest kings in your association are your staff. Treat your staff well, your business will rise. Treat your staff badly, your business will die. Is somebody following me? Yes. Character, you see, we are building character now. Character is crucial to your success. So, whenever we had clients, I was in my client's business. I knew my client's wife, I knew the children, I knew what they were going through. We talked about anything and everything. So one day a client just comes up and says, we have an airport to do, and can you do it? I've never done an airport in my life. I'm an architect, yes, but I've never done one in my life. But I have craft, I have God. With God, nothing can be impossible. Yes, sir. So what's my answer to it? Oh, sure. Meanwhile, I'm quaking in my boots like you do not know. Because this is an airport. You do it wrong, it's a fiasco. Your profession is destroyed. But I said, yes, with God nothing can be possible, shall be possible. Long and short of it, we started it. And went back to craft and got all the information necessary, called my colleagues together, spent money doing it. And before we knew it, the first airport was being built. And anytime I would go and stand there, I'll be wondering, how did this thing happen? How? Many architects never get to build one airport. A few do one. By the time we're finishing one, the second one was on the line because they saw me on TV. Now I'm becoming a TV person. And I'm watching the whole thing like you are watching, like a movie from outside. So they interviewed me. I didn't know it was on TV. And these people were having problems. They had actually started the other project, but they were having big problems. So somebody just called me and said, I saw you on TV and you sounded like you knew exactly what it was you were doing. Come and help us. So that is help from Macedonia. Can you come? And I said, oh, sure. You know, now I'm getting my backbone is becoming a bit stiff. So we go in, oh, you made this mistake, okay, this is what we will do, don't worry, it will be okay. And before we know it, airport number 2. So we go for one conference. And you know, like I said, God is speaking all the time. The opportunities are there, you just don't see them because you are tuned. So tune back to Him. So I see a flyer and I see something, Airport Consultants Council, something, you can become a member. You can be sure I quickly grab it, and this is in Atlanta. So I just fill the form. I don't know what's going to happen, and I send it in. And a few days later, I get a response. They've checked my bio and my CV. Yeah, sure, why not? Suddenly, I'm a member of the Airport Consultants Council. I'm becoming international now, one step at a time, fortuitously, if you like. But care and craft is working. I've not come to course yet. Then, later, I like to, everybody wants to go. You have to travel to go and see what's happening in other places. So, I see an advert for a training in airport design in South Korea. Never been there. And I want to go for the training because, like I said, your craft, you need to hone it. And honing your craft means spending money, spending time, spending resources. So, I fill it out, and then it's organized by the Airports Council International. And they say, well, for you to be able to come, you have to be a member of the Airports Council International. But Airports Consultants Council, which one is this one again? So I fill the form as best as I can, and I submit it.